Hey everybody, John with Souffront Construction Engineering, and in this video I'm going to go over some questions that I get a lot from customers. We do building recertifications, 40-year recertifications in South Florida. They've been called 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, 25-year recertifications. They have a bunch of different names. But today I'm going to kind of cover most of the questions that I usually get from clients. And I'm going to try to go over that and answer a lot of the commonly asked questions. Just to tell you a little bit about who I am and what I do. I'm John Souffront. We have a family-owned and operated engineering and construction firm here in South Florida. And basically, we've been doing these inspections for about 15 years now. So I have a little bit of knowledge and insight on the topic, and I want to share with you guys. So follow me to the whiteboard. Thank you for watching. So one of the questions I get a lot, and it's usually from new property owners or new commercial real estate investors. Usually property managers already know this, but new investors that are coming into the South Florida market, they ask me, what is this? What is a building recertification? What is a 40-year? What is this 30-year inspection? And I usually have to break it down very simple. And I say, basically, it's an exam as if you were to have a physical by your medical professional. But it's an engineer or an architect that's licensed in the state of Florida going into your property, whether it's a high-rise, mid-rise, commercial warehouse, townhomes, condominiums, complex. It's the same principle. The licensed professional is going into the property, and basically they're going to be looking for two things. One of those things is they're going to be looking at all the structural components in the building. So they're going to be looking at things like roof. What condition is the roof in? What's the useful life? Are there any deteriorations? As I walk through the roof, does the parapet wall have deterioration? So they're going to be looking at a lot of the structural components, especially roofs. We're going to be looking at walls. We're going to be looking at balconies. We're going to be looking at your foundation. So if there's anything that sticks out, any kind of settlement cracks, anything that calls out the attention of that licensed professional and kind of says, hey, this is something that needs to be taken care of now. I don't see this being a healthy thing from now to 10 years. So when we go on site, we're always looking at buildings from a 10-year perspective. If I certify it today, if I was to walk away from this building today, in 10 years, will it be okay? So keep that in mind, because that's going to be one of my follow-up questions. So we're looking at all these structural elements, all these structural components. I know I'm missing a couple, but these are some of the main ones: the foundation, walls, roof, stairs. Stairs is a big one because there's a lot of steel stairs here in South Florida, and those get deteriorated. So there's about 19 different components for the building recertification in Dade County that we look at. So we also look at electrical. We inspect all the electrical components. So we also check for the electrical components. We have Camilo here, my son. He's inspecting the structure back here. So we're looking at, when we go in, we have our electrical engineer, we have our electrical assistant, and they start looking at all the electrical systems, the electrical panel, circuits that seem off. We're looking for generators. We're looking at the generator connections. I know I'm spelling some things wrong here. We're looking at the illumination of the parking garage, exterior areas. There's about 16 to 17 different electrical components that we're looking at when we're doing the building recertification in Miami-Dade County. Dade County has a specific different approach. They have something called the guardrail inspection. So they also have electrical and they have a guardrail aspect. And this guardrail is to make sure that if the building is located near a lake or a canal or something similar, that it has the proper guardrail so cars don't fall into the water. So that's a specialty only for Dade County. So this is only in Dade, right? In Broward, we don't have this situation. We also have the illumination for lighting. I know I'm spelling things wrong, but I'm just trying to, do it quickly. This is also part of Dade. Guardrail and illumination. So that's basically sums up what a building recertification inspection has. It has a structural aspect, an electrical aspect. In Miami-Dade, it has a guardrail and illumination. All this needs to be done, obviously, by a licensed professional. It's generated on some county mandated reports and gets sent off to the client and to the city. So, in summary, that is the body and the meat inside a building recertification inspection. Hope this video helped you out. Thank you. Hey everybody, another question I get a lot is, after the inspection reports have been submitted to the city, does the city come to the property and verify? And the answer to that is yes, they do, especially on threshold buildings. So I'm going to kind of outline here on the whiteboard the post-inspection process, right? So post-inspection audit by the city. So if your building is a threshold building, and that typically means a building that's 3+ stories tall or has a load occupancy of 500 people or more, you have to get an audit. So this automatically gets you an audit. Now, what happens if the inspectors, what do they look for? So what they're doing is, when they go and they do this audit, when the city goes on site and they do these audit inspections, they have the structural report that the engineer or architect signed. They have the electrical. So they have one structural engineer, one electrical engineer. They show up on site and they make sure that everything that's on that report matches apples to apples. And it's automatic for threshold buildings, and there's a fee. So there's a fee associated with this. The city charges a small fee. I think it's between $220, something like that, as of the time of this video. Also, if things don't match, the city could revoke the report. That means they could revoke it. They could cancel it and basically say, what's on site doesn't match what's on this report. We're not accepting it. And then you have to start all over. So yes, the city can go on site and do an audit inspection. And if your building is not a threshold, they can also do it if they wish. If they see some kind of anomalies, they can choose to do an audit inspection. It's a quality control audit inspection. So I hope this video has answered that question. We get it a lot from clients, is if the city is going to be on site, do they show up after you guys finish with your work? And yes, they do. One of the most asked questions is obviously, how much does the building recertification inspection cost? Like, how much is an inspection, John? I get that every day, obviously, right? And more than that is, clients are always comparing one firm to another firm, and prices have changed since the Chaplin Tower incident, because obviously insurance and all that went up. The report got a lot, the reporting part got a lot stricter. There was additional sections added and a lot of new conditions that needed to be inspected that usually weren't needed in previous years. So all that affected the cost. So what does it cost? The best way to answer that is, how big is your building? How long is what's the square footage? What's the balcony? How many doors do you have? How many areas does that, engineer need to go into in order to have a good sense of the structural integrity or electrical integrity of your building? Those are the questions that I usually like to, that's usually the direction I like to take my clients in, is first, talk to me about what type of building do you have? Is it a mid-rise? Is it a high-rise? Is it an office condo? Is it a flex space? Is it a high-rise? Is it individual townhomes that share the same roof? So I'm only looking at one roof versus, multiple different roofs separated by parapet walls. How many buildings are they on site? Do you have a clubhouse? Is it, we're talking about Dade here, but is it in Broward? Is it in Palm Beach? Is it in Orlando? Where is the property? All those items affect the going rate. Basically, from my understanding and what clients have been telling me, typically buildings usually start around $4,500 per, and that includes usually the structural and the electrical. We've seen them where they obviously are in the tens of thousands of dollars, but those are usually for the bigger size buildings. So they could range anywhere from 4,500 and up. When you're asking for an appraisal and you're purchasing a building, an appraisal could be $3,500, $4,500. So I've seen that it's kind of in line with those type of comprehensive property reports. But the best way to approach this is when you arrive and you're shopping for this type of service is know the type of building you have, know the type of size, know the size, know how many buildings you need. Usually if there's multiple buildings and they have similar layouts, you can kind of get a better rate because you have more buildings, and that way you get a discount there. But if it's a threshold building, automatically you're going to have an electrical engineer involved. That bumps up the price. If it's a you're going to also have to have a specialized structural engineer if it's threshold as well, with a special license. So all those factors, all those variables create a different price point. In our organization, we like to charge it by the size and type, and we kind of have a system in place that's very easy and repeatable, so that if you call or somebody else calls, the numbers are in line. So what's the cost? They could start at $4,500 and go into the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on how many buildings and the size of these buildings. So I hope that answers or gives you an idea into how much does an inspection cost. Another question we get a lot is, what happens after my inspection is done, the reports are generated, but there's repairs required? So this is the process. If repairs are required, the first thing you're going to need are engineering repair plans. So engineering repair plans. What are engineering repair plans? So this is when an engineer or an architect generate specifications for the repairs that were found on site. This is usually for dramatic repairs, concrete spalling, cracks in certain areas, foundation issues, usually smaller things like, the missing of a cover on a junction box, or you're missing some caulking here and there, typically don't get put on the repairs required list. So when we do have repairs required, when we put this in a report, when you see this, usually it's followed by a permitting protocol. And the first thing you need in a permitting protocol are the engineering repair plans. And those plans are going to have basically the location of where the damage is. It's going to have specifications on how to repair those damages. Then obviously after that, you're going to want to have a bid sheet, right? This bid sheet, I spelled it wrong, but who cares? A bid sheet, and that's where we're going to have the quantities of the areas that need to be fixed. And the quantities, quantification, basically having, and it's usually going to be a square foot if it's going to be spalling and things like that, or cubic feet, linear feet for cracks. You guys get the idea. So the bid sheet is going to help in the bidding process when you're hiring general contractors, restoration contractors, electrical contractors, etc. So repairs required report. First step, you're going to need some engineering repair plans. Then bid sheet. After your bid sheet, you want to send that to your bidders, and that's when you send it out to your contractors to get pricing. So you send it out to your contractors, and this is where the bidding process begins. This can sometimes take months, even years. So it's important that the person who's spearheading your plans and your bidding process knows exactly how to get you to the other side. And then basically after you hire your contractor, then he does the actual repairs, right? He repairs everything. And then the fifth is then, obviously he does his repairs and his inspections, right? He has to get his inspections while he was doing his repair through a special inspector. And then obviously he then gets a final, gets the job done. And then number 6, we get a reinspection. So this is where the reinspection happens from whoever did the original, the reinspection on the original failed report. So the engineer who failed your report, then this is where he comes and does a reinspection. It could be him or it could be somebody else. But the idea is for you to start here, step 1, get your engineering plans. 2, get your bid sheets so you can send everybody the same information. You hire your contractor through the bidding process. He does his repairs. At the same time, you get the inspections done by your special inspector. You get your final. Then you have your reinspection report. Let me put reinspection report. Or they like to call them in the industry amended reports. Amended reports. And then basically this gets sent to the city. I would say 7. Resubmit, right? Resubmit to the city. Resubmit to city. And then you get another review, and then you're granted recertification. And then you don't have to worry about this for another 10 years. So this process is a process. And it has, there's some people that do it with efficiency. There's some people that do it in a very lethargic manner. So it's very important you know who's spearheading this entire process. And this could, if you hire the wrong engineer, they can add a lot of things to your repairs required. That's another thing. I've read other engineers' report because here at Souffront, we are sometimes the engineer, we are sometimes the contractors. So we get a lot of plans and we get a lot of reports from other engineers. And I've seen some ridiculous things on the repairs required list. So it's important that your engineer, whoever's doing this, is somebody who has done this many, many, many times. Because the younger guys are, they'll see a hairline crack and they'll condemn it, not knowing that that's, typical settlement. And it all depends on the location and how the crack looks at the time. So I've seen projects where we've seen a bunch of minor little things that shouldn't have been in the repairs required, but are now in the repairs required list, and that now costs the end user, the clients, the association, the tenants, whoever is responsible for paying that, costs them extra money that should have never been put there. So it's very, very important that the person you hire has experience in knowing really what's required and what's not. So hope this video helped you. And I think we're going to title this video, Repairs Required as per the 40-year recertification. We're going to cover now the recertification timeline. All right. So typically at the beginning of the year, your local building department will gather all the lists through the property appraisal of all the properties that are due for recertification that year. And what they do is they send out a notice, usually at the beginning of the year or the middle of the year, depending on your county. But Dade County, it's usually at the beginning of the year. And what they do is they'll send you the notice, right? Let's just say that they send the notice in, they call it the notice. I call it the city letter. That's what we call it here at the office. We call it the city letter. And they'll send you this notice, let's just call it January, right? And you'll have 90 days to comply with giving them the report, the structural and the electrical report. You'll have 90 days to give them a structural and an electrical report, signed and sealed by an engineer or architect in the state of Florida. So what happens after you submit? Well, normally a lot of people don't make it in the 90 days. So the city started to send out 2-year advance notices. So that's very kind of them. And still people don't make it, even with the 2-year advance notice. But let's stay on topic here. So we have a 90-day window to get our report submitted with a city fee, obviously, right? They charge their city fees. And then if you pass, if your report is clean, what we like to call here in the office a clean report, you're done. So if your report is clean, you're done. That's it. We'll see you in 10 years. 10 years, you'll see this process again. You get a letter that grants you recertification. You're done. Now, if you have repairs required, right? Repairs required. I know I'm spelling this wrong. Repairs required. And then there's another process. There's another step, right? And that means you go to phase 2. In phase 2, this is where you have to generate. You have to go through the permitting process, right? You have to go through the permitting process, and I'm spelling things wrong. And then you get an additional 90 days, or I believe it's 60 days. Sorry, 60 days. 60 days. You get 60 days to submit plans for repair. Right? And then once you submit, and it goes through the reviewing process at the city, they take a couple of weeks, they approve your plan, then you come into construction. And then here you get about 120 days to 150 days, and obviously these days could be extended depending on the progress your contractor is making. So initially, you have a 90-day window from the time you get the city notice to submit your reports. If it's clean, you're done and you don't have to worry about this for another 10 years. If you have a report that requires repairs, then you have to go into phase number 2, which is the permitting process. And this permitting process entails plans for repairs. Obviously, you got to hire a contractor to execute the repairs. But obviously, these plans get submitted within 60 days. So we have a 90, 60 days. You get your permit, and then you got to execute your work in about 120 to 150 days. And then here you can get extensions if your contractor is not done with the work. If you fall short of these processes, you go into a department called unsafe structures. You don't want to be in here. Getting you out of here is very, very tough. This is like Halloween Horror Night. You know, this is a very, very bad department to fall into. You have to pay fees. You start getting fined daily. It's very difficult then for your engineer to get you out of there. You got to do meetings and you have to go on site sometimes. There's a lot of logistics just to get you from here back to being in compliance. So what I like to tell clients is, hey, get your report done. If you fail, you get an additional 60 days, and then you submit your permit plans. Then you get another 120, 150 days, and then obviously you're still in compliance while everything is underway. So the timeline is typically 90, 60, 120. And I hope that helps you guys with the timeline. If you guys have any questions in detail, feel free to reach out and we'll explain it to you. Another question I get a lot is, John, can you help me out end to end, from beginning to end? And the answer to that is yes. Here at Souffront, we're licensed engineers, we're licensed general contractors, we're licensed electrical contractors, and now we're licensed plumbing contractors. So we like to offer our clients an end-to-end solution. And what does that mean? We do their inspection, we generate the reports. If they hire us and they want us to do the engineering plans, we could definitely do the engineering plans and specifications. We can even do the actual construction and execution. And a lot of people say, oh, but there's a conflict of interest there. That's when we tell the client, you can hire your own third-party special inspector to review our work, our plans, and to make sure that we don't abuse of the relationship. So we could be the engineer of record, we could be the inspectors, we could be the engineer of record, and we could do the construction. Owners just, if they feel comfortable, when they don't feel comfortable, they want to hire a special inspector to supervise our work, we welcome it. We even point them to maybe a couple of people that they could use. But they're more than welcome to hire whoever they wish. But yes, we love to offer our clients an end-to-end solution. It saves them time. It saves them money. It makes sure that they don't fall out of compliance because we have an entire back office who's in charge of making sure that the deadlines are met. Is it worth it? Yes, it is. Can you hire individual people to do each thing? Yes, you can. Usually, the people that we serve end to end save about 20 to 30%. because we already know where the damages are at, we already know where things are located, so we go straight for the source. And then obviously we have special inspectors inspect our work and make sure that all our I's are dotted, all our T's are crossed. I hope that helps with that end-to-end solution. Thank you. John with Souffront. Bye-bye.